So PlayStation, like right after those leaks came out of, I mean, what was in effect just this, the gameplay of the remake, the leak came out, people were upset about it. People were like, oh crap, what are you doing? This is not anywhere near as upgraded as it was supposed to be. So Sony came out like within a few hours, low-key impressive, with this 10-minute video explaining what the remake was and everything. It makes me think that they had this queued up for release like a few weeks down the line, or maybe even a month or two down the line, and instead they just decided publish it, try to take the news away from the leaks with all of the negative attention. And I don't know if it worked, but we're going to watch this and see if we actually think it's as good as they're making it out to be. Because according to Naughty Dog and PlayStation, this deserves a full $70 because it is a from the ground up remake. Let's see.
I'm coming.
More than 2 years ago, when we were finishing Last of Us Part 2, and we were working on those flashbacks within that scene for the first game, we got excited with the idea of like, oh man, what if we made The Last of Us Part 1 to look as good, if not better, than what we have done with Last of Us Part 2, which we really pushed the boundaries of like what we could do from gameplay and a graphical standpoint, and felt like if we do that, we could actually come even closer to our original vision of what the first game would have been had we not been constrained by technology.
I don't care what anyone says. I think he looked way better with the longer hair.
The original creative vision of The Last of Us, I think in a lot of ways was larger than what the PlayStation 3 was capable of.
The tech of the PS5, it's like an open box of tools and goodies that we can play from and draw from. The 4K, HDR, improved haptics, 60 frames, help us to reimagine The Last of Us.
I still think the water looks like crap. So, like, first things first, is this better than it was on PS3? Yeah. Yeah, it's better. Is it on par with, like, The Last of Us Part 2? Probably. At least graphically. I think it looks almost like a straight, like they just rebuilt The Last of Us 1 in the engine of The Last of Us 2. But The Last of Us Part 2 was not built for PlayStation 5. It wasn't. Like, it was built for the PlayStation 4. It's important to remember that. So just because this looks better and it's running in a way that looks as good as The Last of Us Part 2, that doesn't mean that it is like maximized for the PlayStation 5, because not even The Last of Us Part 2 was maximized for the PlayStation 5. They put out a patch that lets it run at 60 frames on the PlayStation 5, but that even that is not the same as being built from the ground up for PlayStation 5. It's the difference between, like, again, a remaster that brings it up to 60 frames and like what Blue Point did with Demon's Souls, where it was from the ground up massively improved, right? It's just different. It's just different. But let's go.
It gave us
Credit where it's due. They are showing that was PS4 Pro.
Frames. Help us to reimagine.
So they're not doing like the easy, lazy thing that they could have done would have been to show it on PS3 and then show the PS5 version. Instead, they're showing the PS4 version on the remaster and comparing the remaster to this remake, which I appreciate. You got to give them credit, because a crappier media team would probably have done that, because that would have been way, like, it would have looked way better in comparison.
The Last of Us. It gave us opportunities to rebuild our characters at the highest fidelity. Not only are the characters more detailed, I mean down to the irises and the pupil depth. You know, you fall into the eyes of the characters. Aside from that, the facial animation is just way more believable. Like all the nuances, all the little subtle reactions, glances, glare.
And I think this is the big thing that I will defend, like Naughty Dog here. I almost said Ubisoft. That would have been funny. I will defend Naughty Dog here. They are going back through these scenes and manually animating the faces for them. Because when they did the initial motion capture recordings for this game back in, 2011 and 12, leading up to the launch in 2013, they didn't have the face rigs that have the camera in front that like scans the face with like the little dots of paint that you've seen in the behind the scenes of The Last of Us Part 2. Instead, like, they had to manually animate that by hand. And that's crazy hard work. Tons of effort goes into it. It is an art form. And so you've got to understand that the amount of work that goes into reanimating a game like this from scratch, or pretty close to from scratch. I'm sure the general like motion capture is reused, but that's still a lot of work. It just is. We can pretend like, oh, well, it's there's not enough here. Just that alone is a ton of work and deserves some credit, especially because this game is primarily narrative, and this game is like pretty graphically impressive, even with Remake. And that animation goes a long, long way. Don't worry, guys. I will catch up on chat just after we go through this.
Right? Like you get all of it almost closer to sort of the original performances.
So no matter what, you stick to me like glue.
So see what I mean? The way that they did this, and if you ever watched that original commentary I did on The Last of Us, I don't remember how long it is. It's like 2.5 hours long, maybe. I don't know. It's pretty long. I go through the whole game bit by bit, but I show a ton of the behind the scenes footage, including these shots where basically how they did it is instead of having the little cameras that track facial movements and then automatically key those, which is what they did in The Last of Us Part 2, they actually had cameras on the set and they filmed the actors performing, and then they manually animated the faces based on that footage that they filmed. So it was like a mixture of TV and movies with games, because they captured everything through motion capture except for the faces, and then the faces were manually tracked on, which is just interesting. So they used all of that footage again and then reanimated this manually, which is crazy. Basically what they did for Andy Serkis's Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Exactly. Which is kind of crazy. Like the tech they use in movies is just probably like 10 years ahead of what we do in real time with video games. It's crazy how impressively fast we improve. Yeah, David looks way different.
To sort of the original performances.
So
all the
here
nuances, all the little subtle reactions,
So there, Ellie looks great.
glances, glares, right?
David looks way better. He's one character that definitely sees a major benefit from this. Like the pore size, you can actually see the pores in his nose. You can actually see the gentle creases. They're not just like a textured crease where they just like color it with a crayon. It's an actual deformation in the model. So he does look way better.
Like you get all of it almost closer to sort of the original performances.
So no matter what, you stick to me like glue. Like glue. Like glue. Got it. Good.
We are able now to not only just have the highest fidelity characters in the cutscene, but also in gameplay. It's the same character, so now we can do these seamless transitions in and out.
That is going to be nice. Like no load screens between those. That'll be nice.
Every part of the game has benefited from seamless transitions and emotional scripting.
Pretty good, huh?
Our stories happen.
Again, like it looks better, but I just think compared to, I just think like now 2 years after The Last of Us Part 2, people were hoping for a remake that looks even better than The Last of Us Part 2.
In gameplay, on a stick.
She knew my mom.
All this stuff is designed to keep you constantly in this world.
Riley, come here. Now you got this, go.
What I find kind of interesting is like mentally, and this happens with books all the time. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but like what the images I have in my head from when I've played The Last of Us remaster specifically match what I see in the remake. And then I see the footage of the remake and I'm like, oh, so that's what I actually saw, but I remember it in this fancier version. Like, let's see if they show another side by side, and I'll show what you mean.
One of the things that the PlayStation 5 is really enabling is that we're able to have a density of physics objects in a scene that we could never do before. Like, this has always been the dream, is to have this number of bumpables, chippables, breakables, destructible objects in a scene. It just makes the world feel rich, makes it feel lived in. Materials can have the properties that you'd expect. The turret truck in Pittsburgh, when it's firing at you and it's just ripping apart the concrete and sending objects flying left and right.
Seeing things break, like there's fear, there's a real fear that it invokes.
And it's giving us a much more dynamic range of gameplay to play with.
Around him!
Our AI tech has just increased incredibly. What we were building the basis off of was The Last of Us Part 2's AI. And it has sophisticated systems for things like the fundamental knowledge model of how these NPCs perceive. And
I like that they show this, for one, because I just find this cool, but also because, like, is anybody gonna look at this and be like, okay, now I'm sold? You see, they have blue text that says hold position, select or sneak combat. Like, no, like, nobody knows what flank path cost rating 5.97, unexposed length 7.12, linear path to length ratio 9.84. Nobody knows what any of that means, but it looks cool because it's like high tech, and that's why they show it. Like, and it does make you pause and appreciate, yeah, like, how do you use math and then like some basic sets of rules to tell an NPC where to go or what to do? It's very, very impressive. You know, this just reinforces the idea that video games being made is ridiculously complex. Yeah, and to be fair, it is. It is ridiculously complex and very difficult to get this working. But like, I find it a little funny that they do this.
understand what the player is much more sophisticated.
Oh!
Now how the enemies are communicating with each other, how they're chasing you, how they're flanking you, how intense that fight feels.
What's his
They're
tattoo?
communicating with each other, how they're chasing you.
Oh, it's Ellie's dagger. It's Ellie's dagger. That's cute. That's cute.
How they're flanking you, how intense that fight feels. It's so much more rewarding coming out of it from the other side.
Okay, it bugs me that he was, like, he's so
How
exposed
intense
there.
that fight feels.
Like, look at this. Swap shoulders, bro.
It's so much more rewarding coming out of it from the other side.
Get out!
One of the other big AI improvements is the buddies. The buddies technology that we developed for The Last of Us Part 2 has this very sophisticated understanding of, like, okay, this is where the enemies can see their exposure. We not only have exposure, we have future exposure. So buddies can know, okay, that enemy is walking forward and they're about to round this corner. So in 3 seconds, that corner is going to be exposed. So I'd better move now to avoid this enemy seeing me.
That was such an annoying thing in the original, because Ellie would just randomly, like, run right in front of a machine gunner and wouldn't get shot. But if Joel did that, you're instantly dead, right? It's nice that they improved that for The Last of Us Part 2. But, like, again, these are all massive improvements that are important. But I think when people think back to The Last of Us Part 1, they don't remember that clunkiness. They don't remember the lack of destruction in the environment. They don't remember that stuff. They remember the story, and to be honest, a lot of us remember the graphics more fondly than they probably warrant, which is why I think this was always going to be underwhelming.
Really lets the buddies make very complex decisions and maintain that feeling of stealth much more believably. Another big enhancement to the gameplay is that we have this technology called motion matching. Motion matching is this technology that's basically using logic that tries to match the desired movement to a bucket of hundreds of animations. A mocapped actor has gone in and run this whole gauntlet of movements to get a really full set of all the different ways a person can move. And then it's basically every frame trying to find the best matching animation that fits the path of where the character is going to go. And this motion model just gives this really seamless sense of transition. The players...
It's one of the things that Rockstar's done so well for so long. Rockstar has some of the best motion matching tech of like any game developer on the planet. It's crazy. Like you play Red Dead. When we initially, I remember when Red Dead 2 launched, and you try walking as Arthur, and there's weight to him. Like it's not easy. You can't just immediately start at a full sprint like Geralt in The Witcher 3. It's a slow, like, gotta rev up and then it gets going, right? That comes with a quality motion matching animation system, and it's what makes Naughty Dog games feel so great, and then what makes Rockstar games feel so great.
Movement is just a lot cleaner. It's this really smooth, organic movement through the space.
First, we just had to build that core experience. And then beyond that, we wanted to add several features that fans have been asking for. For example, we now have a permadeath mode. Along that, we've added a brand new speedrun mode, so players can time themselves. There's a whole
I do like the speedrun mode. I kind of wish that more games would do that.
community of gamers that just want to see how fast.
Because also, like, once that's in the game, not only is it way harder to cheat because it's in the game, but it also, like, sets the rules for the speedrunning from the start, because it's like, oh, the official speedrun mode is what we're going to use. I find that pretty cool.
Fast they could play through this game. Beyond that, we added a bunch more of unlockables. So there's all these different outfits for Ellie and Joel that people can unlock. A model viewer mode so people can really appreciate the details. We added award-winning accessibility features.
Every single accessibility option that we offer, that's a barrier removed for someone.
Ash.
That's true. Like, so let me just specify this. I saw somebody tweet, and I don't remember who it was, so forgive me. I did see somebody tweet something about this, and they said just the accessibility options that they've added here make this worth $70 because it makes it more accessible to so many people, right? And I have two thoughts on that. For one, I would hope that in the modern day we could just accept that gaming should be accessible to everybody, and I would hope that PlayStation and Naughty Dog, being extremely successful companies, could just suck it up and make accessibility features free for games, even that they're patching that are years old. I would love to see that. So there's that. Secondly, maybe it makes it worth $70 to the person that's never been able to play it before because it wasn't accessible. That doesn't mean it's worth $70 to everybody else, right? Because value is in the eye of the beholder. If this now is playable for you because of the accessibility features, for one, I'm sorry it took them so long to make it accessible to you. But secondly, like, that doesn't mean that everybody now should pony up $70 for it, right? It just doesn't follow.
She surveys the apartment. Her eyes wander to Joel. She steps past the couch. He wears the wristwatch Sarah gifted him, which now has a cracked face.
To my knowledge, this is the first PlayStation game that has audio description built into the game, built into the cinematics.
Now it's nighttime. Joel stirs in his sleep.
And that's really the way we've tried to push the frontier of accessibility on this game.
I have a question. Forgive me if I'm not, like, informed. I'm just genuinely curious. So they said that now there's this, like, spoken dictated description of the scene, like during cutscenes. So I would assume that's for people who are visually impaired and can't see the cutscene. But if that's just an audio descriptor of the cutscene, what does it do during gameplay? Like, is there a movie mode where you can just play the game with nothing but cutscenes? Is that a thing? Because maybe that's a thing, and they just haven't mentioned it. But I'm just confused as to what that's supposed to. Because, like, if that's just appealing to the people that can't play the game because they can't see it, maybe they're blind. Cool. But, like, there's a lot of game between cutscenes. So is there a movie mode? I feel like I'm missing something.
So much of the identity of The Last of Us is the world.
We revamped completely the art direction. You know, everything from these expansive vistas that not only are they beautiful,
Thank you, Dorva, for the sub. Thank you. Appreciate you.
but You feel the
expensive
environments.
movie.
You feel the environments in a much more visceral way. The rooftops overlooking the Capitol building, for example, like just the breath of fresh air when you go up there and you just like, you feel that sort of release in tension. And then, you know, to juxtapose that down in the tunnels in Wilds, and you get that dank, flooded tunnel feel, that humidity, you can actually feel it. All these environments are just completely reimagined.
Now we got our engine on the PS5, those haptics, the 3D audio, the fast loading. It really creates a much more immersive, and because of that, much more emotional experience.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I have not been sold on the 3D audio. I haven't seen any game implement it in a quality way. And the games where I think it would be really beneficial are like Apex and Warzone, like those types of games. And they're like, both games just have terrible audio, even still. And I get it, that's on the developer, but like, just because you have a branded thing called 3D audio doesn't mean that it's going to be amazing, you know? I just don't find it impressive. I'm a guy who loves good audio. Like, look at me. I'm the chump that has these like really nice speakers. I have a subwoofer over here in the corner. Like, who needs that in a tiny studio? Nobody. I like good audio, but I have not seen any game take advantage of the 3D audio that like they tried to sell the consoles on.
One of the things I absolutely love with the 3D audio in The Last of Us Part 1 is being able to hear an enemy before.
Wait, 3D audio via TV speakers or analog/USB stereo headphones. I mean, I get it. I get it. It's stereo, 2 speakers, you got headphones on, you should be able to mimic 3D space, whatever, I get it. But the idea that you can do 3D audio through TV speakers hurts my soul a little bit.
Before they sneak up on you.
Because it's just not true.
And trying to do a stalker fight with the 3D audio is just so much fun. You're hearing them skitter around in a different room, and you're hearing them trying to get it behind you. Having that 2-part reaction of like hearing, turning, seeing.
It's just me, or is the audio peaking a little bit? Did they not balance this right? Or is it just my headphones freaking out?
Reacting, it's just really heightens that sense of just being grounded. You are in this character, you are in this world. Now, with the PlayStation 5, the amount of control that developers have over the DualSense, it's really, really cool. All the guns in the game have a variable amount of resistance on the triggers when you aim them. The way it works with the bow is that at the very beginning, when they're starting to draw the bow, there's a little bit of resistance. And then as the bow gets tauter and tauter, the amount of resistance is increasing. And then when you release the bow, you're also getting that resistance going out of the trigger. When you are aiming and firing the shotgun, you're going to get a haptic vibration on the shot. And then what I think is one of the ways that the DualSense really advances things is you're going to get a haptic vibration on the pump of the shotgun. And what's much more sophisticated about that on the DualSense is that in effect has a little like speaker in it. And it's playing an audio file that comes through in the vibrations. And those 2 beats is what you're going to feel on the controller.
Looks like a good spot.
This also ties in to the new workbench animations. So if you're seeing Joel taking apart.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just looks like they just built The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us 2's engine. But there's one huge piece that they have not shown that's missing, that's caused most people to find this frustrating and disappointing, which if you haven't spotted it yet, I'll explain it in just a few minutes, but there's a huge thing that was present in The Last of Us Part 2 that's just missing here, that they've intentionally not shown.
A gun or screwing something in or putting a new stock on a gun, that moment where he's like jamming that on, you're going to get that haptic feedback on that. We have, haptics all across the board, for all the moments you kind of expect, for clambering, jumping, landing, meleeing, getting meleeed, like all those kind of high intensity moments we have represented in the haptics. What I personally absolutely adore is the way we can enhance the really like quiet, subtle moments of gameplay. So it's like when Joel goes in to pet the giraffe, getting that little light touch on the haptics as he's petting the giraffe. To me, that's the essence of The Last of Us. It's the high tension moments, it's the low tension moments, it's all of it feeling grounded. It's you're feeling immersed in this world. It's all about bringing you along with that story in as many ways as we can. And that's what the new technology on the PlayStation 5 is allowing.
Was that everything you hoped for?
Jury's still out.
There's something special about that core experience of playing as Joel and Ellie on this journey. Then to take that experience and really honor it and keep the authenticity of it, but elevate it in every way possible, whether it's pipeline, whether it's art direction, whether it's technology, everything that allows us to make that experience better. Not different, extremely better. That's why, to me, this is the definitive way to play The Last of Us.
I mean, again, also in development for PC, for the record. So it will be coming to PC. What's the thing that's missing? Remember how in The Last of Us Part 2, there were all of those sequences. Let me pull it up. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Please hold. Please hold. The Last of Us Part 2. Trademark. Probably. I just have to find a clip where I probably do it. Is this it? I probably use it here. Maybe. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe. Okay, maybe I don't use it in this clip. I just want to demonstrate one thing. Just do the one stupid thing I need to demonstrate. Okay, hold on. Please hold one more moment. Please hold one more moment. This clip. Maybe this one. This one, Shirley. Don't call me Shirley. Okay. Where is it? Where is it? I was trying to take a picture. We're playing the game, having a great time. I get jumped. Don't mind me. The gore system is going to be there, so that's something. How did I not use it at all in this clip? Are you kidding me? Okay, well, the thing I'm talking about is the freaking going prone. Going prone, crouching behind grass and things like that. That's just not shown in any of these trailers. And it was a huge part of the gameplay in The Last of Us Part 2. And it's just not present in the remake, in anything they've shown. And they didn't show any of the stealth sequences where you could have used it. And I think when people heard that they were going to be remaking this game, they thought that they would add not just the dodge ability to dodge melee attacks from enemies, but that they would also be adding the like tall grass in stealth sections so you could go prone and hide from enemies there. For me, it seems like such an obvious thing to show if it's present in the game. It's weird that it's really weird that it's not shown, which makes me think that it's just not there. And I think it's because they probably didn't really redesign any levels or any gameplay. They instead just went back through and, like, as they actively upgraded things, they just replaced object for object through the scenes. So, like, if they were remaking this level, they would just load this level in The Last of Us 2's engine. And then, like, oh, we have a bus here, so we'll model that. We'll replace that. Then these trees. Replace those trees, delete these ones, put new ones in. The statue, delete the statue, put the new one in. The water, okay, we'll do that. New grass, put that there. They didn't go through and say, okay, well, we want there to be more stealth opportunities. So we're going to put tall grass here that wasn't there originally, so it changes the game. And I think the reason that they did that is twofold. For one, it's just easier. Let's be honest, it's just easier. And two, they wanted it to retain the original feeling or design of The Last of Us. And they felt that if they went back through and, like, added in a bunch of stuff that wasn't there originally, it would probably like, I don't know, it would be playing with fire. You'd be changing something that wasn't present in the original. And I get that, but it doesn't change that I think players are expecting that when you say you're remaking the game with gameplay improvements akin to that of The Last of Us Part 2. It's just people will expect the better thing. And then when they don't get it, they'll be disappointed, which is what I think we're at now. Let's see. Let me catch up on chat real quick, see if there's anything in here. At the end of the day, this will be the definitive edition that future gamers will play, so it's okay with me. You are right, Bob Barker. It is going to be the definitive edition, and they're going to put this out right in time for the HBO series. I think the only problem that people have is that it's full price akin to a full price game. I haven't seen anybody say, oh, it's $70, but if it was $60, I'd be okay with it. Nobody's complaining about that because they're paying $70 for other current PlayStation titles. And like I've said before, inflation right now is insane in the US at least. If you like $60 in January of 2020, right before COVID, $60 then would be akin to about $68 now. So in other words, if you took today's currency at its current value and went back to January 2020, something that was $60 then would cost you $68 now. So inflation's been a big problem. So it makes sense that the prices have risen as a result. But people aren't saying, my problem is that this is 70 and not 60. People's problem is that they're charging the same price as a fully from the ground up original AAA game for a remake. And that's just kind of lame. I understand a lot of work went into it. They manually keyed things. They did all of that. But all the other expenses that are tied up in a major AAA game, such as the writing of the story, the gameplay system, the ideation, all of that, that wasn't present here because they didn't actually redesign any of that. So I think people would not be complaining as much if it were $40. But the other piece of this too is that Naughty Dog has a ton of trolls now after The Last of Us Part 2 that follow them around passionately and obsessively. So it's hard to see whether or not something is an actual scandal at any given time because so much of it is just bullcrap, so you never really know what people think. Let's see. A barrier removed and another takes its place by putting it at a price point that's not equal to its value. Yeah, I think that's generally the frustration. I mean, we'll see. They might come around and in the span of 6 months, it might drop down to $40, $30. Who knows? I do think you'll see a big surge of people trying to get this from GameStop and other used places for sure. Yeah, they're bringing the accessibility options from The Last of Us Part 2, Andrew. They are. Sure are. The way I see it, there's a spectrum when it comes to remakes. You have something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is a complete remake, including gameplay, and something different, like Shadow of the Colossus, which was purely a graphical upgrade. The Last of Us Part 1 seems like the latter, which is fine, but I can see why $70 is too steep for some people. You're correct, Lord Greystoke. I absolutely agree. There are two different, I guess, degrees of remake. And this one, I think the other reason people are upset is because this one was initially described as the former. It was described as a super high effort from the ground up, gameplay reinvention, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out it's just a graphical upgrade. And so it's yeah, well, we're glad that there's a graphical upgrade, but you said that you were reworking the gameplay and you were bringing gameplay improvements akin to The Last of Us Part 2 and you were doing all of this other stuff and you're just not. So we kind of feel lied to a little bit, That's at least how I kind of feel about it. I feel like they knew what they were doing when they said this was a gameplay oriented remake, and then we see this and it looks like it's just graphical. People I think just generally feel a little lied to, which never ends well. Like whether they were lied to or not, they feel deceived, and perception's more important than reality when it comes to these types of things.